Our skeleton helps protect different parts of our body and also helps maintain structure. So we're going to take a look at the structural system to better understand the role it plays in our yoga practice. Each bone in our body is made up of living tissue, and why they do play a role in supporting the body, but they also protect our organs, allow movement, and aid in the production of red blood cells and provide storage for minerals. The skeletal system is divided into two parts. The first part is the axial skeleton, which is the skull, the spine, and the rib cage. The second part of the skeletal system is the appendicular skeletal system. This is composed of the shoulder girdle, the pelvic girdle, the upper limbs, and the lower limbs. One of the most important principles to understand in anatomy is that every person's body is unique, and there are differences in the skeletal system which have an impact on what practitioners are able to do. Bones come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and depending on the structure, some students may be able to get into a posture that other students cannot. So many modern yogis are drawn to the practice because of the way the postures look. So students may put an emphasis on achieving the perfect look of the posture, but then they'll find that their body may not allow them to do this. So if bone structure is preventing the student from achieving a certain pose, then they might risk injury if they force or push themselves into it. So it's so important for students to focus on how a pose feels in their bodies rather than how it looks. So we look at tension and compression. So for example, when a pose doesn't work, tension is when the muscles are encountering resistance or have reached their stretched limitation. So tension, you may not be able to go any further because the body has been stretched as far as it can go. And when it comes to tension, you can train the body to stretch further, and you can gain better flexibility. But with compression, you can't do this. Compression is when your body is stopped from moving or stretching any further because something is in the way. For example, the knee can bend in one direction. You can bring your heel over your foot to your sit bones, but you can't bend your knee the opposite direction. And even if you try really hard and practice for weeks and weeks, it wouldn't be possible. And you'd probably end up injuring yourself, and this would be an example of compression. We tend to think of bone as static or unchanging, but as a living tissue, our bones are continually going through changes. Our bones are constantly replenishing themselves over time. There are three different types of tissue that makes a bone. Compact tissue, which is the outer tissue, the sponge-like tissue called cancellous tissue, and subchondral tissue, which is the end of each bone and covered in cartilage. The periosteum is the tough outer membrane that covers the bone, which provides protection. And this is where ligaments, tendons, and muscles are attached. And also in the centre of the bone is where you'll find marrow, which is where red blood cells develop in the marrow. And they are responsible for carrying oxygen throughout the body. Bone marrow also aids in white blood cells, which protects the body from illness or disease. What can we do to keep our bones healthy? One of the biggest challenges is related to density. As we age, our bones get more and more dense, and they start to begin to lose their density after reaching adulthood. And our bones are continuously replenishing themselves, and they do this by breaking down and then rebuilding. As we grow older, our bones will continue to break down but aren't able to rebuild at the same rate as they did maybe when you're younger. So as a result, we start to lose density in the bones as they break down a little faster than they rebuild. Lifestyle choices can have an impact on this. A poor diet, lack of physical activity, this all can lead to bone degeneration. We'll look at different bones of the body. We'll start from the top and move our way down. So first thing, we have the skull, then the shoulder girdle, which has 3 bones, the clavicle, the collarbone, the scapula, which are the shoulder blades, and the upper arm bone, which is the humerus. Moving down from the shoulder girdle, we have the rib cage, the sternum, and the spine. Moving further down, we have the upper arm bones, which is the humerus, the lower arm bones, and the forearms have 2 bones, the radius and the ulna. The radius is lined up with the thumb. The ulna is lined up with the pinky. Moving down, we have the pelvic girdle. This is broken into 2 parts, right and left. Connecting to the pelvic girdle are the upper leg bones, or the femur. 2 upper leg bones and 2 femur bones. We have the kneecap, and the kneecap is called the patella bone. Further down through the legs, we have the shin bones, which is the frontal bones. The shin bone is called the tibia. And the lateral bones of the lower legs are called the fibula. There are 3 main types of joints that we're going to look at within the skeletal system. The fibrous joints, the cartilaginous joints, and the synovial joints. The fibrous joints are very dense and fibrous. An example would be the sutures in the skull that bring together the different bones in your skull. The second joints are the cartilaginous joints. They are at the rib cage. This cartilaginous joint connects the ribs to the sternum, and they allow the rib cage to expand and contract. This happens during breathing. And the last joint are synovial joints. They're the most abundant in the body and the most movable. For example, we have them at the knees, at the elbow, and the shoulders. An example of a synovial joint is the bone of the upper leg, the femur, which connects to the tibia of the lower leg. A synovial joint has a joint capsule that's filled with fluid, allowing for smooth movement.